Aedrex, the Collector. Chapter 1. The Collector. A great son of Dragur, with no profound title or name, an ordinary demigod raised to protect mortal kind. It was in birth that Aedrex beset eyes on descendant tools and mechanisms, for though he was nonchalant to their presence, the lordly dragon remained engrossed by their powerful armaments and probing jewels. Lurking in the shadows of the world, and keeping to himself for many years, Aedrex quickly found purpose. The descendants hardened themselves with craftsmanship and tempered with powerful forces to create grand artifacts. As magnificent as they were, he saw darkness in the hearts of mortals who lazed with their dangerous relics, either to become unused or stolen by the hands of Iblis and his evil machinations. Despite great creativity and remarkable power, they had no foresight to make use of their great gifts. Aedrex hawked down into the lands and amidst their wars and perils, claimed the artifacts into his endless hoard, to be safe kept and used when needed. Unrestrained in his benevolent duties, his presence was less known by even his brothers and sisters, who were charmed with their own existence. The great fumes of ruin polluted the air, and though he did not suffer a direct hand in supporting descendants, he swept down between war and bloodshed, to reclaim ancient burials and artifacts from the hands of evil and good alike. As descendants fled, the demigod took flight, with his powerful hoard of artifacts, and continued to fill his lexicon with knowledge gathered over time. He took little interest in descendants and scarcely interfered outside of collecting his dues, all for a twisted sense of safeguarding mortals from their own creations. Chapter 2. The Grand Library of Dragur. Orther wandered the continent of Valor following the demise of Cytherian. Known as a harbinger who once commanded in the ranks of the Black Scourge, he remained at the brink of a collapsing mindset, suicidal, weakened, and injured from the defeat of his master. Within a cradle of ruins infested by moss and stone, the wayfaring harbinger collapsed upon a set of winding stairs. It went far into the depths of the world, painting the wall with murals of history, yet it seemed incomplete, tracing fragments of knowledge. Enfeebled and towing in and out of consciousness, Orther slept on a slab of stone, covered by writhing insects and bugs that crawled over him. A night of rest, inspired by the detailed murals he sighted in his journey to awaken the next day. In front of him lay shades of gray, the bare feet of an old man with a thicket of coal hair. His eyes were like fiery slits of orange, serpentine in nature, that seemed to embrace age and wisdom. Aedrex introduced himself to the harbinger, and spoke about his ambitions. Yearning knowledge and wishing to increase his hoard, they spoke for days and nights on the politics of the world. They wrote on parchment and painted the walls with chalk, envisioning a new creation. Orther sought knowledge and purpose, whereas Aedrex selfishly desired to increase his hoard of artifacts and the expanse of his vast lexicon. And in the final week of their conversation, the idea came to fruition, to create the Grand Library of Dragur. A secret canal linking into the ruin was trudged by stone and shells, and the Dragaar moved his lexicon into the center of this new building. Over the years, his lexicon began to increase in knowledge, and as more came to work under the secretive organization, it allowed Aedrex to fulfill his ambition, to increase his hoard of artifacts. The descendants came about the library and saw its knowledge, but also came to know the harbinger that ran it. Orther had yet to be forgiven for his crimes under the legions of Cytherian. On a simple day, the gates of the library were met by drums. A large guild of holy mages descended into the library and began its slow, inevitable destruction, and Orther peacefully surrendered. The Dragaar lurked in the shadows of the library, and did not confront those who destroyed his years of hard work and effort. Instead, Aedrex grasped at his lexicon and departed. In the depths of his heart, a newfound distrust was born. He did not come to see Orther after the destruction of the library, and his whereabouts, once again, became unknown to all. Though the library would continue onward, the collector's involvement with so would not. Chapter 3. The Pilfering. It was upon Aethera where the collector's famed stash of artifacts were held, deep below the stones of the Khazadrin Mountains. Artifacts and treasures beyond compare from millennia of quiet accumulation. The Dragaar was distant from his cavern home upon Arcus, when he had heard hushed whispers of an expedition to the forgotten and ruined continent. Aedrex quietly took his leave in the months before the grand voyage, returning with what little he had taken so far from the descendants of Arcus. It was there that his greatest nightmares were realized. His collection, an anthology of the world confined to such a small cavern system, each artifact and tomes painstakingly studied and catalogued, was suddenly occupied. Not by no mere treasure hunter or mortal, but the night terror, Gudor. Aedrex was horrified beyond compare. His life's work, all his effort to restore his father and find some use of wayward treasures forgotten or misused by descendants, was now in the possession of a threat greater than he could ever imagine. Aedrex was stuck as the descendants began to make landfall upon the continent, exploring the abandoned continent as nature began to reclaim what the people had once taken from it. Paralyzed with fear, he quietly reached out to few, two named Namir and Cyrene among them. They quietly conveyed messages to the descendants of Gudor's madness and the folly of Aedrex's curiosities. Inadvertently, Dragaar had now made his hoard known to some of the very same people he had taken from. As the branch of trust was extended to the denizens of Arcus, Dragaar would soon realize his mistake. The Collector was a distant and weak witness at the pinnacle of his most vulnerable state, observing as the descendants had slain the Night Terror and began to lay eyes of avarice upon the immensely wealthy chamber. In fear of all he had worked for to be ripped from him, and with the side of the dying Dragaar, Aedrex attempted to collapse the cavern in upon the descendants. Seeing even the faintest hint of greed as betrayal, even as artifacts had aided in the demise of Gudor, Aedrex feared that descendants would undo his work and once again rage and struggle with one another over precious trinkets. The cavern collapsed as the descendants made their escape, the greatest collection of magic and knowledge the Dragaar had ever known, surpassing even his withering library upon Arcus, was now buried leagues beneath the earth. In the place of his great hoard, a deep and boiling resentment took place at his core. Chapter 4. The Present Day. Aedrex in the present day is scarcely seen, both still in great distress of his collection laying in ruins, and of the betrayal he perceived at Gudor's fall. Still collecting quietly from continent to continent, the Dragaar would hold a great distrust for descendants, and would take artifacts even from those who may have ample use for them. While most iterations of the Library of Dragur now lay in ruins, and with little knowledge or artifact left within, Aedrex would quickly scurry between the dead continents of descendants, and those still teeming with life to take whatever may even be of the most mild use and information. His lexicon now his greatest treasure, the Dragaar now hides his hoard in the most remote and unreachable places he could find upon either Eos or Eos. The resentment which burned within him for descendants is not one of hate, but of mistrust. Already a skeptic, the Dragaar understands the troubled descendants find one another infrequently over trivial curios and treasures, using and misusing them against one another and for no greater purpose. They cannot understand what he may need them for, his greater preparations, and thus have no place in his dealings. Tools of such power never belonged in descendant hands in the first place.